Here in this video we shall try to understand the transmitter. Okay, so we all know that transmitter is an electronic device which is generally used to transmit the radio signals. Not just radio signals, different types of transmitters are available now to transmit different types of signals. So we are discussing a radio transmitter in this section, or in this class, or in this discussion. So what is a radio transmitter? What he says here. Okay, so what is a radio transmitter? Radio transmitter is an electronic device. Okay, let me just take pen. Okay, a radio transmitter is an electronic device that takes the electronic signals and converts it into the radio frequency signals. And such a type of electronic device which converts the electronic signals into radio frequency signals is what we call it as a radio transmitter. Fine. By using this diagram here, which we can observe, we can understand the same thing little better. It's an electronic circuit. Transmitter is an electronic circuit. Okay, as we already know, it is an electronic circuit. What it does, it takes the electronic signals and it converts it into radio frequency signals. This is the function done by a transmitter, and hence we call it as a transmitter. Fine. Then in the discussion we have something important called as the functions of a transmitter. So there are three main functions of a transmitter. Number one, it should select the correct frequency for the carrier signal or carrier frequency. It should select the correct frequency for the carrier signal. That means the carrier signal is the signal that carries the original modulating signal or modulating signal through a longer distance in the radio communication system. So that is why a perfect carrier signal is to be selected to carry the signal, to carry the modulating signal or signal of intelligence or importance over longer distances, and hence this becomes a very important function of a transmitter. Here we can observe, okay, so the required carrier signal, carrier frequency is to be selected for transmitting the signals over longer distance, and such a carrier signal, whatever that is selected, should be perfect, should be very correct. That is why he says here it should select the correct frequency for the carrier signal or carrier frequency. So the second important function of a transmitter is that it should provide some sort of modulation, some form of modulation. The second important thing that it should do is it should provide some sort of modulation. Modulation can be either of the three things that are available in this picture here or in the screen here. It may be amplitude modulation, it may be frequency modulation, it may be phase modulation. Any of the these three type of modulation or any of the combination of the modulation is required. The reason behind modulating the signals is what we already have discussed in the need for modulation in one of the previous videos. Okay, so we need some sort of modulation that is to be done, and that is one of the main function of a transmitter, to transmit the signals over longer distance through the radio communication system. So the third important function that a transmitter has to carry out is it must provide sufficient power amplification. It should provide the sufficient power amplification. What do you mean by that? Power amplification can be understood by using the diagram here. Okay, here we do have a weak signal. This weak signal, after amplification, it becomes strengthened. The weak signal becomes strengthened. Such type of amplification, once we provide, that will help the signal to reach the longer distance or to travel through the longer distance without loss of information. That is the importance of amplifying. So by understanding this part, we come to conclusion. Okay, so what conclusion we shall make? So transmitter is an electronic device that converts electronic signals into radio frequency signals and is radio frequency signals, and hence it is called as radio transmitter. Okay, converting the electronic signals to radio signals, it transmits over longer distance. That is why it is called as transmitter. The three main functions of a transmitter are: it should select correct frequency for the carrier signal, and second important thing, it should select the correct frequency for carrier signal, and it should provide some sort of any sort of modulation, and the third important function of a transmitter is it must provide sufficient power amplification so that the signal is not affected over longer and longer distances. And this is what the important these are what the important functions of transmitter.